Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Mr. Charlie Dyer, Education Minister and Administrator for Ridgely Baptist Church. Welcome, sir. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pray with me. Father, we thank you for your love. We thank you for your word. Through your word, you have given us a model of justice. And Father, we thank you for that and for order. Father, we thank you for this day. And Father, we just pray that as we proceed through this day in this meeting, that truth will be told, decisions will be made in the following of your will, Father, and that everything that we do will cause Tarrant County and the cities that are involved to be prosperous. Father, we thank you for your guidance, for your sovereignty. And it's in your name we pray today. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer, for coming out this morning. Mr. Manies?
John Members Court, we have no announcements this morning.
Wow.
No, there's something wrong.
Something wrong here.
I had an extra cup of coffee before I got.
Well, it's first in 12 years, so I mean, that's a 12. Well, that's all I can count for. I'm just,
How many is it, J.D.?
22. Good job, Mr. Manies.
Thank you.
You have before you, court members, you have before you the minutes of our meeting of March the 3rd.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, the first is a proclamation on Poison Prevention Week, and that is for ratification only, and I'll move its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And next, I believe, is a certificate of appreciation. Commissioner Van Ravensway.
Yes, I presented that to Martha Walker at the Board of Managers meeting for the hospital district last week. That is for ratification only.
And that's a motion?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have an award to present.
I do. At the annual meeting of the Fort Worth chapter of the American Institute of Architects a week or so ago, Tarrant County received an award for, well, it's what they call the Heritage Award. It's for buildings and renovations that last and that have stood the test of time. This is the 25-year award given to us for
Commissioner Johnson? Is that for Commissioner Johnson?
No, it would have to be more than 25 for Commissioner Johnson. Have to go back to the Lincoln administration, probably.
Thank you. Okay.
At any rate, this recognizes the 25th anniversary of the renovation of the historic courthouse. The good job that they did, at the time, and the fact that it looks as good today as it did on the day that it was rededicated. I'd like to present this award to...
I see Clarence back there from
Clarence.
facilities. Come on down, Clarence. You just got here in time.
Come on down. But it's actually an award to all of the people of Tarrant County.
And at the same meeting, Tarrant County received another award for the opposite end of the spectrum, and it was acknowledged with the innovation and the new approach to building green for the sub-courthouse that opened in June of last year in Arlington. So come on down, Clarence.
Well, it's a good thing you came dressed up today.
And I think this is an exceptionally interesting picture. Cool. Very interesting, very innovative to go along with the actual innovative building that we have. So I commend our facilities department and our architects also. Our architects were acknowledged for their design and their innovation thinking to the future. So it's
Some new
it's a
something.
distinction.
I might suggest, though, Commissioner, that needs to hang in your lobby. So
Well, I was hoping maybe you'd give it back.
maybe you can wrestle it away from them.
And show it to your Phillips first. Well, I'm very proud of what you guys did for us. Thank you.
Thank you all. We now have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Lynn, it is good to see you here today. You remain in our prayers, and we thank you very much. Good to see you. Good to see you back. Thank you. Public hearings. I believe we have 3 public hearings today.
Thank you, Judge. The first public hearing is to consider the placement of an all-way stop sign at Wall Price, Keller, and Ray White in Precinct 3. The county engineer, along with the city of Fort Worth, conducted a traffic signal warrant analysis at this intersection. It is currently in the county, but planned to be annexed in the next 3 years from the city of Fort Worth. It did meet warrants for a signal, and in the interim, we're asking permission to put up a 3-way stop sign.
Move approval. Wait a minute. This is a public hearing, and so I will open the public hearing for comments at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this matter? There appearing none, then we will close the public hearing and take any action that you'd like to take.
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The second public hearing is request for the placement of stop signs at 3 locations along 9 Mile Bridge Road in Precinct 4. The locations are at Landers, Hidden Place, and Timberwolf, 9 Mile Azle. The county engineer has analyzed each of these locations and recommends the placement of a stop sign at each.
This is public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There are none appearing. I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our third public hearing is a request for the placement of a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on Tinsley Lane in Precinct 4. This is at the request of the citizens that live along Tinsley Lane. The county engineer has conducted a traffic study and recommends a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on this road.
I will open the public hearing at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this matter? None appearing, then I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask the clerk to show me voting present for the previous item. Voting aye.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 2 additional items for the court this morning. The first, we're requesting that the court approve and accept grant funds provided by the Justice Department and administered by the Texas DPS as it relates to the Texas Court ID project.
Please explain the Texas Court ID project.
Basically what this is that in some instances when a person is convicted in a criminal court, their fingerprints either are not located at the DPS or have not been taken yet. And this will allow, if in fact the defendant's fingerprints have not been taken, they will be taken in court after the conviction and will be transmitted to DPS, and DPS will assign a criminal identification number, which will allow us to complete all of our tasks as it relates to that particular process. What this will do, the DPS through the Justice Department will fund 20 computers and 20 fingerprint scanners in each in our courts. There's a $10,000 software linkage fund that'll be available, which will allow us to connect with the DPS so that we can get this information. We ran it through just on an email basis to the IT steering committee, and we've already met with IT, and once the court approves this, it'll become part of our criminal justice information system.
I don't suppose I'm opposed to this, but I'm rather incredulous that someone could get that far to a court conviction and not have their fingerprints taken somewhere along the way. How on earth could that happen?
If they were never incarcerated. And there are instances when a person can actually go through the process and never be incarcerated for a criminal offense. Plus, sometimes DPS simply doesn't have the fingerprints. They might have been taken, but they don't have them on file. And so if, in fact, that occurs, we're able to take the prints in the court at that time, relay them to the DPS, and then the DPS can assign the SIN number. Quite frankly, you can't process the offense completely until you do have the criminal identification number from the DPS.
And there are some instances, I believe, there have been somewhere in the back of my mind, I remember some sort of legislation which basically says you could stop someone, you could issue them a ticket. It could actually be for, maybe some sort of a misdemeanor on that type of lines, or maybe even a felony, and they could actually not be arrested there on the spot and show up in court, and at that point in time there would be a felony. Or
I think all felonies.
When you're booked, I mean, you've got to go through booking, I would think, on a felony, don't you?
Not necessarily.
Give me a for instance of the type of...
You can be indicted.
On what?
Well, a felony. You're not indicted on misdemeanor charges.
I understand.
Clete looks like he's just dying to get up and say something.
They can walk you through the system where you're never incarcerated.
Clete, come on down, because I think you're going to shed a little bit more light on this, maybe.
I hope.
Right behind you.
This would be both misdemeanor and felony courts, so it would be all 19 of those courts, plus also the magistrate court. So I think we're asking for 23 machines, and these were provided at no cost. One big source of people making it to court without having their fingerprints taken already would be hot check cases. There are apparently a lot of those. And there are some other instances, kind of miscellaneous sort of things, where not all of the cities have the live scan machines in the police departments, and they bond out in the cities. So some of them make it to court that way. There are apparently a significant number like that make it to court without having had their fingerprints.
So, Clay, what you're saying is that people can actually be arrested, or not arrested, but charged with a crime and go to court and not be fingerprinted.
That's right. It does happen, and apparently in fairly large numbers.
Let's bring them on here.
A rebuttal?
Hopefully.
Support.
As a member of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, we had a presentation made to us, and I made the motion to support this, and the committee adopted unanimously. There's a real need for this. If we have any mistaken identity or any question about identity, which does come up, about people showing up in court that aren't the right person, other things, this is the time to stop that and get everything matched up where there's no question in the future. And it's fairly minimal expense on the part of the county, and the state is certainly doing their part in this, and I would just tell you I fully support it.
I appreciate your having made that motion, Mr. Wilder, but if the prints have never been taken before, then there's nothing to match up.
Well, they may not have been taken in this particular case.
I would like to know what the significant number is. It just seems so odd. And there may be a huge number this is just something that's been under our radar screen. I have a question in regard to the $10,000 for the connection. Is that something that we purchase, or is that something that we develop?
I think it's a software issue that we'll probably develop. We may have to purchase some things. This is a reimbursement. I will tell you that IT has been involved in this from the very beginning.
I thought you told us that this had been through the IT committee.
We sent it out to the IT committee through an email for their comments.
Inasmuch as all of those traps have been run, and apparently the reaction is universal approval, I will move approval of this item.
And I will second it, but I will ask that we be informed sooner than later, should something like this come up again. And that would be with the IT steering committee as an opportunity to actually meet and discuss, because you know you'll get input that way, and I'm not necessarily sure you get it from an email. Too many people get too many emails, and they may not have even read it.
I have a motion and a second.
I'll second the too many emails.
Just overwhelm you, don't they?
I would just comment about the too many emails, that too many of them these days end up in the embargoed file.
I just leave them there.
We have a motion and a second. I hope there's no more discussion. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving right along there, Mr. Manius.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't have any announcements.
I started to say he made up for his lack of announcements.
Members of the Court, on item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve amendments to the procurement card policy. You might remember the auditor issued a report as related to that particular policy last week, and we've been working for several months now with purchasing and the auditor's office to do some significant modifications as it relates to the procurement policy, and we're now ready to bring that to you for your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're off the hook, Mr. Manning,
For now.
for now.
Ms. Tidwell. Over.
Who's this green?
He wasn't grinning.
Green. I didn't say green.
I'm not sure Mr. Fickus has it. Commissioner Fickus has any green on him.
My underwear is green.
We don't want to see it.
Too much information.
Well, I'm obviously wearing green, so.
Go right ahead.
All right. The first item that we'd ask the Court's consideration of this morning is the approval of some definition change into Section 5 of the investment policy, as outlined in your court communique. The law, the Public Funds Investment Act, the law itself, actually the wording in that law has changed over the years. And when we started looking at what our options might be in regards to CDs and the discussion that we had about buying CDs at local banks, we realized we didn't have the most current language in our policy that actually allowed for some of those things. So this is just lifting the language right out of the law and putting it in our policy.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The next item is to ask the Court receive and file the auditor's report on the bail bond collateral for the fiscal year ended 2008, and this has been, I believe, through the bail bond board, and we're all in agreement on where we are with this.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
That actually was a receive and file.
Motion passes unanimously.
And the third item we have is a receive and file of the auditor's report for the Sheriff's Department Inmate Trust Fund, and you have the Sheriff's response attached.
Move approval to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Marlon? Mr. Collins?
Your Honor, members of the court, we would ask that the court accept a check in the amount of $3,599.61 in settlement of the county's subrogation interest in the associated matter.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Glenn?
I move to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I have a few more items. Item number 2, we're asking the court to approve the interlocal agreement between the North Texas Central, let me start over, North Texas Central Texas, that doesn't make sense. COG, thank you. And the member entities, that doesn't make sense.
North Central Texas.
Okay, thank you. And the member entities of the Public Employee Benefits Co-op, PEBC. This is a one-year agreement that's effective 1/1/09. The budget was approved by the board last December, and the budget represents a 5% decrease over the 2008 budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, we're asking the court to approve org changes for Precinct 4. The details are outlined in your court communique. This does represent a cost savings of approximately $1,500 to the Road and Bridge Fund.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4, we're asking the court to approve changes to the project position assignment in community development. Community development is asking that this position, which was approved by the court, I believe, 1 or 2 years ago, be used in their neighborhood stabilization program. There is no impact to the general fund.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 5, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of paternal benefits for the 297th District Court. The judge is requesting this waiver effective March 9th. Fiscal impact to the general fund is a little more than $3,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our final item is item number 6. We're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Precinct 4. Precinct 4 is requesting this waiver effective March 18th. Fiscal impact to the Road and Bridge Fund is approximately $3,600.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
We have 4 items for reconsideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for RFP number 2009-020. This is an RFP for juvenile forensic assessment services for juvenile services. Recommendations toward DeCarton Psychological Services. We're also seeking contract approval from the court.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-037. This is the paving and storm drain for the Joe B. Rushing Road from Campus to Circle Drive. Recommendations toward the low bidder, J. Mills Contracting Incorporated, amount of $608,120. Also seeking contract approval as well as acceptance of performance, payment, and maintenance bonds.
Move approval.
Second.
Is this coming out of county budget, or is this coming out of the Resource Connection?
It's the Joe Rushing Road? Yes. It's coming out of their oil and gas royalties, so it's coming out of Resource Connections dedicated funds.
Good.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2009-054. This is a bid for the purchase of Hewlett-Packard servers for our Cisco call center.
Recommendation is to award the low bidder, Staples Technology Solutions, amount of $33,487.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item, we're seeking contract approval from the court for a contract with TxDOT for motor vehicle inquiry account information for both transportation and purchasing.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Jack. I believe, Commissioner Johnson, you have some interlocal agreements?
Well, let me get my computer tuned up here.
Need to move that thing a little bit quicker. That mouse is getting a little slow. That mouse is getting a little slow down there.
Move approval of item 9M1, A, B, C, and D.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve items 9M1A through D. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments?
I have one. Richland Hills TIF District Number 1, TIF Board Member Designation. Ms. Carolyn Sims, appointed.
Second.
Move. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We don't have any bonds today, so you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move for approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several items for the court this morning. The first one concerns an update by the hospital district. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Wasn't he just here?
Yeah, he's getting to be a regular.
First of all, I wish to thank the court and particularly Commissioner Van Ravensway for your newest appointment to our board. We welcome Mr. Capehart. He already attended his first meeting, and very appreciative for y'all making that appointment. Second thing, I'd like to acknowledge Tony Spangler for his accurate reporting. Mr. Spangler reported that we made some administrative changes, and in that article he also listed that we would be going out for a national search. And what that enabled things to do is have every search firm in both the United States and Europe call me, including an aunt and uncle that I didn't know I had that own a search firm in Detroit. So I want to thank you for that effort. That's been great. A couple things. I wanted to let you know that we are opening up our 14th school-based health center, and that will be located in Mansfield. And we're thankful for that. And, Commissioner, that is going to be a nice addition to our cadre of school-based health centers that we have helping those children. As I mentioned before, we've had about 32,000 students on average in a year go through our community school-based health centers, and they're certainly of benefit in helping out, and they're working well. The other thing that I wanted to...
Mr. Early.
Yes.
Where are we on the Everman school-based clinic?
We are currently working with Everman in a very positive way. It's working well. They seem to have a facility out there now, which they had a major space problem, which is oftentimes our issue. We're now working with them on utility hookups and getting the proper plumbing in. And that, of course, is part of the school district, and they're struggling with that issue, but it's working fairly well, and I think Everman should be up, hopefully, within the next quarter.
They should be 15?
Yes. They'll be 15 or 16. We've got another one online as well that's already up, but Everman is there.
Are most of the ones that we're doing now below or above 50% free lunch? Or
Yes, above would be the right term. We try to pair that to the free lunch and free breakfast program so that population base in that school district, particularly in that section of that school district, parallels our patient base.
And what districts have we not been able to necessarily, I mean, have we been able to break into Fort Worth yet?
We're into Fort Worth. We're just not into expanding Fort Worth because of Fort Worth's ISD's financial situation. Because as you well know, that's a partnership that we have, and that's been a struggle for them at this time. And we did have Ms. Ann Sutherland come before our board last week and suggest that we just create them all on our own and not have that partnership between the schools. We would still like to have that partnership and still like to have that type of a situation. And the other thing that speaks to the partnership is not just the money aspect, but when there is a partnership, there's much more cooperation with the school district because you're coming in and you're working with school officials and school nurses and counselors, and it helps a lot when you have a partnership, both at the financial end and the commitment end. So it has worked well. We have not received any difficulties or problems. Sometimes it's harder for some of our school districts that don't have the financial means, and we do try to work with them in any way that we possibly can, but we do insist on some level of a partnership between them. But we try to be real helpful and work with them. In the case in Everman's case, that's been a struggle, but in Everman's case, I think we have now worked out the facilities, and it's just a matter of the utility aspects of it, and I think those will come in line. The other thing I wanted to let you all know, we are giving you more financial information, I think, historically than JPS has done. And in that midst, you're going to find out new and different things, and you're going to find out some things that I think are viable for this community and this court to understand. We currently, right now, are outspending our budget in certain areas, and the reasons that we're outspending that budget in certain areas, and we are very cognizant of it, and we are concerned about it, but we're not at a crisis level. We're not including any potential for federal funds coming in, and that's a different philosophy. One of the things is I don't think we're very upfront with you in the past, and we kept those federal funds sort of hanging out there. We're looking at a budget right now without the inclusion of those federal funds. When the federal funds come, and I believe they will come, then the budget will adjust and change. But right now, we're having some difficulties, and those difficulties are due in part to the effects of the economy. We're seeing more people come in needing charity-type care programs. We're having an increase in those. Our payer mix has changed. Our payer mix has gone from 10% down to about 7%, and that's going to have a fairly significant impact on you. The other thing is, with the new pavilion and also some shortages in staffing, we've increased staffing levels, which I think JPS should do. I don't think you can ask providers to provide the care if you don't have the proper nursing staff to back it up. So we've increased our staffing levels, and in that midst, we have also found ourselves in some situations that we need to be very cautious about. We, however, have the proper amount of cash on hand. Our investment portfolio is suffering like everybody else's. However, we are above the industry standards. We're getting about a 3% yield on some of our investment portfolios when, unfortunately, the industry standard is 1%. So we still have vibrancy and we still are healthy. Didn't want to indicate that we are in any type of a crisis, but we're watching it closely, and we'll be providing you a full briefing. I'd like to suggest ways that we can best brief the court, be it at this venue or at another venue, or individually brief you about what our situation is. We're going to get together and discuss some of our financial situations here in the next 30 days with board members and others, and we'd like to present that back to you as court members as well.
Robert, when does the federal money come in normally?
The federal money has probably been delayed slightly. It was part of a package that they sent and that was passed by both House and Senate in Washington. They pulled that area out for some cleanup language, I believe. I don't think there was politics involved. It should have come April 1, but it will probably come in the middle part of April. Is when those federal funds will be released.
From a DisPro standpoint, I mean, I really feel like that ought to be budgeted in there, because that's just as much of an estimate as is all your other revenues, with the exception maybe of the property taxes.
Right.
And, I have long argued that DisPro should be a part of the budget, and to say we're deficit spending right now when there's no real belief that DisPro money isn't going to come in, I think. Now, if it doesn't, then we should always, that should be a part of the cash reserve.
Right.
But, we're going to end up with a big wad of cash coming in here. They had a continuing resolution, I guess, a couple of weeks ago for the budget, but I'm assuming once they set that, then that money's going to begin to
Yes,
flow out.
it will. And I feel confident that it will. And there is there's no gamesmanship, and two, there is a need for that transparency that hasn't existed in the past. And I think you make a good point that it should be part of your budget, and that
Yeah, but I really don't, right now to say we're deficit spending and we're not putting the DISPRO in there,
right.
we're not deficit. I don't believe we are unless there's been a complete about-face and all of a sudden this government isn't wanting to spend money.
Right.
Which has not been any indication since January the 21st.
And prior to that too, I'd argue. But I think you're right, and I think that is the situation. And I think going forward, and as we set the new budget, you're going to have your opinion will certainly be debated amongst the board members. The other thing that I wanted to tell you is we just concluded our Level 1 consultation. Let me give you a briefing on that. Level 1 is what JPS is moving towards, becoming a Level 1 trauma center. It's, in my opinion, not fair for Tarrant County not to have a Level 1. We're one of the largest metropolitan urban-type counties that don't have a Level 1 trauma center. And the advantages, as I've mentioned to this court before, of a Level 1 trauma center is that every need that you would have as an unfortunate trauma victim would be taken care of at that center. The only thing that wouldn't would be burned, and we would ship that over to Parkland. We had our consultation, and it went well. We have some areas that we need to work on, but a consultation is something that we invite. We invite, in essence, the medical auditors to come in and say, find everything you can find that we need to be perfect on so that we can have our visit and get approved first time out. And that visit should probably take place within the next year as we move forward to a Level 1 type commitment. But they just left. They haven't given us their full report yet. They just left about 48 hours ago. I wanted to give you an update on that. And as I mentioned, in light of, not necessarily in light of, but mentioning the administrative changes, we have made some administrative changes in our chief of nurses and in some of our other areas, our vice president of human resources, our director of construction, and some of the others. And we'll be looking for searches to fill those positions and communicate both locally and regionally and nationally if we have to, but the emphasis on those searches are going to be from a local standpoint and then go from there. So wanted to give you all the update. I appreciate it. I'll make myself available to you as always at any point individually or as a group to give you updates.
Any questions? Go ahead. Staffing. What kind of challenges are you running into in keeping adequate staff, and you're opening school-based clinics and staffing them, and you're looking at future clinics, and overall, how is that working as far as?
Well, there's two things I'll tell you on staffing. First of all, I think our relationship with the University of North Texas, which provides a significant portion of our providers in our clinics, has changed significantly, and I think not only they're doing a better job, but we're helping them with the best tools we can in our clinics, and I think the relationship between JPS and UNT has increased, and I'm happy and proud for that. I think from a staffing standpoint, the thing that does become problematic for us as well as all the other hospitals is nursing. It's tough, it's difficult, and that's a group that oftentimes will move from hospital to hospital depending on what the current rate is, and that can be difficult. Although we have an immense amount of loyal nurses at JPS, it's nursing issues that are the biggest difficulty.
Are we competitive?
Yes.
In the market?
Yes, very much so. We're very competitive in the market, and if we weren't, we just couldn't attract them with a philanthropic heart to say JPS is a great place to work. You have to be competitive in that marketplace. So we're doing well. It admits what the situation is with the nursing shortfall in some areas. The other thing is we're great because we always need to remember we're a teaching hospital, and when you're a teaching hospital, especially from the medical side, who you teach oftentimes is who stays, and that's real important for us to always enhance that teaching side.
Anybody else? Any other questions?
You came down to make this report all by yourself. That's unusual.
Mr. Minnies wouldn't let me put up my 84-slide PowerPoint, so I had to forgo. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Robert. Status of your emergency committee that's looking at times and wait times and that kind of thing?
Well, we have an appointee to the board that was made by a guy named Commissioner Fickus, and Trent Petty is heading up that committee, and he's doing an incredibly great job. And Mr. Petty and I are fixing to take the report, which is in its preliminary stage, on a road show. And we're going to meet with all of our medical chairs and begin to discuss with them. The firm thing that we've discovered in this is not an issue where you just take out the group that heads up your emergency room. You make a huge mistake if you do that, and that's oftentimes what administrators do. They say, let's take that physician group, get a new one, and take them out. If you don't fix the system, it doesn't make any difference. If you don't admit patients properly, discharge them properly, get your beds turned around quick enough, we found out in this study it takes 5 humans. It's a proverbial joke. How many times how many people does it take to change a light bulb at JPS? But we take 5 humans to figure out whether a bed's available. And you got to go through 5 chain of commands, and it's all done manually, and it's done on a clipboard at JPS to find out if there's room availability, if the room's open. And rooms can oftentimes sit open far longer than they should. So we're now have got software in place to deal with that, and some of the changes we've already made. But that report and that study has gone very well. It's coming to its conclusion now.
I think one of the other things that I would like to see is wait time from a standpoint of a time when someone's told they need surgery and how long it takes in the different specialties to get to that point of surgery. Because it's one thing for them to go in and for them to determine, okay, we need surgery. And it may be, one specialty may be able to do it inside of 30 days. If there are those specialties that it's having to wait longer, then, that tells us, again, we don't kick out the whole physician group. But we may say to one group that you're either going to get this thing fixed or where it's not. There ought to be some sort of a benchmark as to no one should have to wait more than this length of time. And if it's above that, then there needs to be an indication as to why it takes so long.
What we're starting to do in all of our areas, and that points to our OR and the effectiveness of our OR, is we're looking at benchmarking standards by which to have measurement outcomes at JPS. And I think we've done a poor job of those measurement outcomes in the past. And all of us, administrators, physicians, nurses, and staff, all need to be held accountable to measurable outcomes. And that's one of them.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you, Robert.
Thank you all very much.
Workforce Solutions, I guess summer youth employment program. I see them standing up and heading this direction. Welcome.
Good to see everybody again. We are eager to partner with our good friends at Tarrant County once again. Today, I come to discuss just a portion of the funds Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County will receive through the Department of Labor due to the stimulus plan. $1.2 billion are dedicated to Workforce Investment Act youth funds, including summer youth. We do not have our allocation yet. We do not know whether the state, which is Texas Workforce Commission for us, will keep their up to 15%. That may be going on right now as we speak. So we are working on formula estimations. We have not had summer youth funds for many years. So let me provide a little bit of a refresher of what that is supposed to do. Summer youth funds provide work experience, career awareness, work maturity, work competencies for youth 14 to 24. And that's a big change for us. Normally it was 14 to 21. We have a youth contractor that will provide eligibility, assessment, and other paperwork, data entry that keeps us in compliance. Currently, we have a request for proposals out seeking public and private nonprofits to operate the other components of the youth program. Those proposals are due on Monday, March 23rd. The elements requested are found on the attachment in your communication, include outreach, marketing, pre-employment and work readiness, monitoring and managing timesheets. Again, we're talking about low income. That information is found on your communication. For example, a family of 4, to be eligible, income would be less than $22,000. I'm going to turn the mic over to Jill Navarrete, who's going to go through some of the details and next steps.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're trying to get a head start on the youth program because it's going to come at us really fast. And so even though we don't have our allocation yet, we have projected that we're going to serve approximately 700 youth. The majority of those youth will be wanting placement at a work site where they can earn wages over the summer. And so what we are currently doing is trying to develop the work sites that we can place the youth at. And we are working with Tarrant County because of the variety of jobs that might be available and the wealth of jobs that Tarrant County might be able to provide. I just wanted to share with you sort of what the responsibilities are of a work site versus what will already be handled for you. The employer of record for the youth will be our core contractor, and they will handle the payroll and all the necessary liability coverage for all of the youth placed at a work site. There will be a contractor that is responsible for assessing the youth's interests, skills, and abilities, matching those youth to the appropriate work sites, and collecting the timesheets and monitoring the youth on the sites. What we're asking the work sites to do is to allow the supervisors to participate in an orientation and brief training to provide meaningful work and integrate workplace learning, because these are youth. When possible, connect the academic skills they may have learned in school with some of the requirements of the job. Expose the youth to a variety of tasks, duties, and skills. We hope that the youth don't get on a job where they're just filing alphabetically all day long, that kind of thing. Allow for flexibilities in hours and days if needed or as needed. A lot of times in these programs, the youth needing academic remediation may also be attending classes, like say on Fridays or what have you. We're having to talk in generalities right now because our procurement is still out and we're not sure exactly what options we're going to have from other contractors. We're also asked that the work sites provide close supervision, coaching, and feedback both to the youth and to our core contractor counselors, and that they complete minimal paperwork like signing timesheets, brief evaluations of the students, those kinds of things. As the communication says, we'll be meeting with the departments next week, and we'll be providing forms for them to identify the worksite possibilities and to give us feedback on any requirements that they might have for the particular jobs. This information is going to be given to a contractor for the matching purposes. And that's just generalities of how this whole program is going to work. So we also would like to thank you for your involvement.
What I had planned to do would be to send out an email to the department heads and to the elected officials and ask them to send either to attend or to send their assistants to a meeting where they can more fully understand and ask questions with regards to this program. It's, I believe, a 2-year program.
It is a 2-year
What we're looking
program.
at, again, it's, the money we get we'll use. We're not using any of county's any county money outside from that standpoint. So it's not a budget type item, and will not be won't be continued if it's not continued. So yes, Walter, I know. I saw you eyes perk up or ears perk up.
We have, Your Honor, we've already spoken with the department heads yesterday a little bit about this. Ms. Glenn is going to run point for the county on this particular item, and so we'll be working with the group on this.
The meeting is set for, is it Monday? Monday the 23rd. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Members of the Court, on item C, we have an update as it relates to the Tarrant County telephone system architecture. Mr. Brunson is here to address the Court at this time.
Your Honor, members of the court, good morning.
Good morning.
Our Plexar telephone contract expires July 2012, so I wanted to spend some time with you this morning to talk about telephones.
2012?
2012.
Okay.
That's still 2012.
That's still 2012. But before I get started, I need to...
I hope we're all around here still.
I hope everybody is. But before we start, I need to share 3 technical terms with you. The first is voice over analog. The second is voice over digital. The third is voice over IP. Each one of those technologies works real well for transmitting voice telephone calls. Each one of those technologies also has unique capabilities that make it particularly suited to do certain features and functions over the telephone network. And they're so well suited that if you try to replicate that feature or that functionality in one of the other networks, it's either extremely difficult to do or it's extremely expensive to do. And so when people come in and talk to us that we need to look at voice over whatever, one of the things that I caution them about is that because we are stewards of the public dollars, we have to look at voice over what makes sense. And I believe that's what the court did in 1993 when they made the decision to consolidate our common telephone infrastructure on custom digital Plexar service. We had 3 years of good, solid experience with the service, serving our downtown campus. We were being told that the world was going digital. We were told that it made a lot of sense to have a consolidated platform for all our facilities. There were substantial cost savings. I estimate there was probably at least $100,000 a year by making this move. We had postalized pricing, which made it real easy to budget for and allocate expenses. Analog phone's going to cost you $6. Digital phone's going to cost you $7.30. It's just real easy to manage. We were also told that it made sense to take our common telephone architecture off county property and put it into buildings that were built to withstand 200-mile-an-hour winds and that had sufficient battery and diesel generator backup capacity to operate 2 to 3 weeks without access to commercial power.
Really?
Yes, sir. They got big batteries down there.
Really ready, huh?
The maintenance overhead with the system was relatively inexpensive and it was relatively easy to manage. If we have a phone that's broke, we have one of our telephone coordinators plug in a working telephone. If it doesn't work, or if it does work, then we just give the person a new phone. If it doesn't work, we call AT&T. They test the line. If the problem's on their side, they fix it at no cost to the county. If the problem's on our side, we have a cost-efficient contractor that we call that fixes the problem for us. So our operating cost to manage our telephone system compared to others is really cost-efficient. And most important, at least to some members of the senior staff of the county, this gave us the ability to have any county telephone that's on the network call any other county telephone that's on the network by dialing 4 digits. The system made so much sense that 16 years later, it's still what we need for approximately 80% of our Tarrant County users. We have small offices that don't always have a central answering point, so everybody in the office needs to have access to all the existing telephone numbers, and they need to be able to see when people are on telephones. Digital service works real well in that environment. We have other users that all they need is they need a telephone number. They need to make sure that it works. Occasionally they'll need access to caller ID or some other feature. And that works so well that 16 years after we were told that the world was going digital, approximately 75% of our users are still using analog telephones because that's the right thing to do. So what about the other 20%? Well, our business needs are changing. Our remote locations are finding out that it's more cost effective for them to have more of their employees have their own telephone numbers. But it's becoming increasingly hard for us to find common blocks of unassigned 4-digit numbers that are available in the 20-plus central offices that serve our network. We're seeing employees that are telling us that, my job's really not in the office, it's out in the field, and I need access to the same tools while I'm out there in the field as that I have in the office today. We're seeing taxpayers and our other constituents who are saying, I don't have a computer or I don't have a high-speed internet connection, but I'm perfectly willing to use the telephone that I have to call up and pay my taxes, pay my court fees, pay my court fines, to transact any of the business that I need to do with the county without having to actually talk to somebody or having to get in the car and come down to the courthouse. We're also starting to see departments that are saying, I really want to know how well I'm serving my constituents. How many calls am I getting each day? Where are those calls coming from? What type of tools are available that lets me evaluate and service the people that I'm charged with serving in a responsive manner? So it leads to the obvious question, well, if Plexar is so good for 80% of those users, why can't we just grow the Plexar network to accommodate these new needs? And the unfortunate answer is that we can't do that. AT&T has told us that this is an end-of-life product. They're not adding new features. We're seeing features that are disappearing. The subject matter pool of knowledgeable resources who can look at problems that we have is retiring, and the new mantra is voices going over IP. So what are our options? We have 7 options, I believe. The first 4 options contemplate Plexar staying around for at least 5 years. I think that's probably a pretty safe assumption given the number of existing lines that are still in service. It's somewhere between 3 and 4 million. They can't exit that quick. The next 2 options I'm not sure are real cost effective because we're not seeing the same type of economics in the local switching market that we've seen in the long distance market. And what I mean by that is that when the world was voice over analog, a long distance call would cost you 35 to 40 cents a minute. When the world moved to voice over digital, that cost dropped to 10 to 12 cents a minute. And now that the long distance network is primarily an IP network, you can get long distance for 3 to 5 cents. And in some instances, it's free, like on the cell phone networks and certain IP providers. So, okay, there's 6 options. What's the 7th option? The 7th option is we do nothing. If we don't do anything, then we'll continue to work with AT&T to extend the existing Plexar agreement. There's no guarantees that the prices will stay the same. I'll think they'll need to go down because they're not making new investment. They'll think that they need to go up because the cost of maintaining the network is higher. But we'll try and resolve something. We also have history that AT&T has not always been cognizant of our needs in terms of giving us enough advance notice so that we can plan accurately. This court has experience with that. If you remember, in December of 2007, they gave us a year's notice that they were going to exit the inmate and the payphone business. To ensure that we were incented to not wait till the last minute, they gave us approximately 40 days notice that they were going to reduce our commission payments by approximately 60%. And what the little numbers are, the 993 number is the revenue that we got from that contract in 2007. The $1,047,000 number is the revenue that we got in 2008 because we had a plan B and we were able to bring in a new supplier on March 1st. The 482 number is what we probably would have gotten if we had not had a plan B and we had waited until January 2009 to switch to a new supplier. And then, of course, we'll continue to ask the departments to fund any call center activity that they may feel that they need. July 2012 sounds like a long time off, but when you're potentially looking at touching every desktop in the county, it's tomorrow. And so we do need a plan B, and as part of that process, we are planning on coming back to the court next week to ask for you to approve an engagement with Forrester Research to help us start developing that Plan B. They were with us in 2004. They did a really good job for us, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
What are you anticipating this contract with Forrester is going to be?
Sir?
How much do you think this contract with Forrester is going to be?
$220,000. And the way that I cost justify it is if we were to look at totally swapping out our network, that's probably going to cost us $8 to $15 million. If they can help us put together a proposal that will get a response that allows us to wrap around the Plexar, then we're probably looking at something between $3 and $7 million. So I think that's money that's going to be well spent.
A good plan, I will assure you.
Rick, that money is in the budget, is not?
Yes, sir, it is.
Good, okay. Any other questions at this time?
No, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, and Plexar has provided excellent service for us for 20+ years now.
The $100,000 a year savings is a real conservative number. Oh, and I will tell you one other thing. I did miss this on there. Tell you how much it does save us. In November 2004, on the day before of and the day of the election, we captured some really good cost data, and we used that information to work with the elections department to put a plan in place for this past election. The platform that we put in place probably, it did cost tens of thousands of dollars. If we had not had the feature functionality available in the Plexar network, it would have cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm real happy, real excited to report that in 2008, we completed 20% more telephone calls to the election center on those 2 days than we completed in 2004, and we reduced the number of busy signals by 99%.
Fantastic.
That's amazing.
Very good.
It made sense in 1993. It still makes a lot of sense for a lot of our users.
Thank you.
But it doesn't make sense for all of them.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next week.
Excellent.
Members of the Court, if we could go to item D. This concerns the federal stimulus package update. Just a few comments. We placed this on the agenda, and it'll remain on the agenda simply as a discussion item that we would like to have with the Court. As you know, the federal stimulus package is out now. We know how much at the national level it is. The problem is that when you get to the local level, a lot of the particulars of the package have not been developed yet. There are some areas that different court members have interest in where there may be more knowledge of certain revenues coming down to not only the state but also to Tarrant County. And then there's some areas that you may not be as well aware of. And what we would like to do on this particular item is, as we go forward, to have it as a discussion item. Staff will continue to look at the package itself. We have been meeting with the City of Fort Worth, the various chambers of commerce, to see if, in our federal delegation, to see if there's any additional information that might be coming out. And I will tell you that it's very sparse. We're not the only ones that do not know exactly how much money is coming down and what it can be used for. There are some things that we do know, though, and I would like to touch on a couple of those and ask that if you have any comments that you make them also. And really, and I might have mentioned this earlier, really this is a communication piece for the court. Simply is that each and every one of you be kept informed of what money is available and what we're going to try to use the money for. I'm going to touch very quickly on 4 particular areas, and then if you'd like to comment on those areas, please feel free to. The first one is transportation. It's my understanding that the money is coming down to the state, and then the state is taking it to the COGS, to the RTC, and then the money will be distributed to projects within the region. Staff is aware of at least 2 projects that are out there that are going to be funded. One is the Southwest Parkway, and the second one is what we call the Grapevine Funnel. And I don't know exactly how many dollars are designated for each one of those. Those are the only two that staff is aware of. Does the court members have any additional information
There's
on
about
that?
the Southwest Parkway, it's the interchange at Southwest Parkway and I-20, and that's probably somewhere in the vicinity of 140 to 150 million, and then the other is the connector project north, and that's about 250 million.
Smaller projects throughout the county that are going through the COG also.
But I'm not sure whether or not there's going to, I mean, that may be the majority of the stimulus money through some work with Michael Morris and TxDOT. We got most of this money for the region over here on this side of the Metroplex, on doing a little bit of trading and stuff along that type of lines.
Commissioner Fickus, you said that there might be some smaller projects. Is that stimulus money projects, or is it money that will be shifted?
It's some of the dollars that were allocated, some biggest chunk went to TxDOT, and some of it went to COG. Some of it went to COG, I think, is going, some of it's on Southwest Parkway.
Yeah, the 2.4 billion that came to Texas, 700 of it, 700 million went and was distributed to the MPOs within the state. The remaining 1.5, 1.6 went, or 7 went to TxDOT. They said 500 million was going to be used for maintenance, and then the remaining amount was distributed by them to certain areas for projects within the state, and that's where we got the 390 was a part of the COGS allocation as well as a part of the state's allocation.
There's 8 or 10 small projects.
So that may be out of that
million here, million there, that are throughout Tarrant County.
And that's probably coming out of that maintenance money, 500 million for maintenance.
A quick question as it relates to transportation. Now that we know how much money that we currently have for these two big projects and the smaller projects, is that all the money that's going to be coming down as far as the stimulus is concerned, or is there another wave of funding that might be coming down?
That's all in this stimulus.
It's all in this stimulus package. It's my understanding, I mean, last week and the week, a little bit toward the end of the week before that, I was in D.C. with the National Association of Counties, and we had an opportunity at that time to talk to several of the new secretaries as well as some of the other folks. They believe that there may be as many as 2 more stimulus packages following this one. And again, we're hopeful that more of that will be assigned to infrastructure and capital improvement type things. But at least out of this one, I think what Commissioner Fickus mentioned and what we mentioned a moment ago are going to be all we're going to get from the infrastructure part of that. Now, there'll be some other monies that the T will get as a result of the $9 billion that was set aside for transit. And a lot of that is formalized. And then I believe there's also some monies that were set aside for high-speed rail that we are in the process of at least, attempting to draw down some. But that's of the infrastructure, of the $40 billion that was set aside for infrastructure. That's what we're going to draw out from that.
I'm ready to move on to another one if we could. Federally qualified health clinics, we've been notified that, well, let me step back and say that I guess it was a year ago or so that we actually put in an application to do a satellite from the Albert Galvan Clinic, which is on the north side. That was going into Commissioner Brooks' precinct. While we didn't make the funding cutoff, it was a good project. It's our understanding, and we've been notified that rather than having to resubmit, they have taken that project now and they have actually funded it through the stimulus. And what that will do is it'll allow the creation of this satellite clinic and funding of $1.25 million over the next 2 years for that particular project. The thing that we need to really focus on as it relates to that is that there is a short window in order to get this clinic up and running. We've got to have it up and running in 120 days. And so we're working with
both Commissioner Brooks and our facilities people to try to find a location and move that thing forward. So, Commissioner Brooks, do you have any other comment or any comments on that?
The other comment is that we've been working with Judge Whitley and the local hospitals under the philosophy that the Albert Galvan Clinic should become the nexus for a county-wide system of FQHCs. The funding of this Southeast Fort Worth clinic is validation of that concept, and we would hope to see additional clinics funded under that structure. But in order to make that happen, we're going to be looking at making some governance change, requesting some governance changes. That's not within our authority to dictate, but reasonable people, I'm sure, will agree that that's something that needs to happen. That's part of getting this first satellite up and running.
And again, those satellites, those have to be positioned in what they call an underserved area, and there are zip codes within Tarrant County where that would qualify, and that would be the places, if we have future satellites, that those would go.
Any other comments? I'd like to move then to community development and emergency shelter grants. We have been notified that through the stimulus package that we are to receive in the urbanized county under CDBG an additional $945,748. I believe that you received some communication from Ms. Ward.
We've got the...
And so that money will become available, and we'll be working with each of you on particular projects. Emergency shelter grants, Arlington and Fort Worth both got a large amount of money on that. We, for the urbanized county, we picked up $1.1 million on emergency shelter grants also, and we'll be talking with you all in the future about the distribution of that. I want to go to justice assistance money. Commissioner Johnson, you might remember that for a long time we received monies from the federal government through what we call the JAG, Justice Assistance Grants, and that money has really kind of tapered off to where we really hadn't gotten a lot lately. In fact, in 2008, our total award was $36,000. That program has been reestablished, and in Tarrant County, all the policing agencies in Tarrant County, we're going to get about $4.1 million, all the different entities. So it's fairly substantial. Our part of that, though, was only about $54,000, almost $55,000. But you might remember this is where when they set up the original formula, that if you spend a substantial amount of money on incarceration and prosecution, you could get a disparate ruling. And we have normally received we work with our cities, and we get about 16% of the monies that they get, and we waive the disparate designation. We anticipate that that will add an additional $653,000 to what the county will be getting, and that when you add it to our $54,000, that's about $708,000. We're in the process now. We'll be meeting with those municipalities this week, Les? Thursday, just to simply begin discussions on that particular fund, and all of this will be coming back to you. But we're looking at a substantial influx of money on the justice piece. Of course, the one thing that we're going to try to do is not fund personnel with that, because we don't know how long this money is going to be, and if there's things that we can do through contracts and issues like that, professional services may be something that we might want to look at. We'll bring all of this back to you, though. That's the only thing that we have. Like I said, there's just not, at least at staff level, we don't believe that there's total clarity yet.
I will tell you again, from the time I spent in, most of these folks that we were meeting with couldn't give us any indications. They're still in the policy writing stage. They don't have clear indications, even from administration at this point in time, what they're giving out. I mean, the Summer Jobs is another program that, we heard about earlier that will be a part of this. I know that there's several people that are looking for the health record, the electronic health record. A lot of people are putting in claims or putting in programs for that. But, again, the Secretary of Homeland Security, of HUD, of there were two others that we visited with. Agriculture, they're still writing the law, or they're still writing the policies on these things. They do not have a clue. And so that's why you're beginning to see not only the 120 days, instead of all of it having to be spent on projects, they're now beginning to push that out a little bit. So we'll hear more and more, I think, as we go down the road on this deal.
There is truly no structure in place yet. I talked with one of the intergovernmental affairs guys at the White House yesterday asking about how to do a specific program, and they're still directing people to the website, which is recovery.gov. That is the best place right now for information about what monies are available and what they're for. As far as the mechanism for distributing those monies, in most cases it doesn't exist yet.
I will say that tomorrow, in fact, the Vice President has kind of been put in charge of this transparency, following up on where the money's spent, how it's spent, and making sure that they've got a pretty good handle on that. They're having another meeting tomorrow where they've invited 35 county officials from around the country to come in and to begin that, along with other folks with local governments. They do appear, the folks that, as Commissioner Brooks just mentioned, the intergovernmental affairs folks have been moved over from what was on the political side of administration to the policy side in this particular administration. I think that's going to mean we're going to have a little bit closer access to those folks. They've been pretty willing to meet with us thus far. And again, we had 4 of the secretaries from various departments come and speak to NACO at this last ledge conference. So that's somewhat encouraging, but again, right now the big question is I don't think anybody's exactly sure how the money's coming out.
Well, in the department head, in our senior management meeting yesterday, our senior managers meeting yesterday, we charged each of the department heads to monitor their particular area at a national level through their associations, so that, and we'll be bringing it up to our office to you all. I would say, though, in conclusion, if you hear that there may be either a shift or a clarification in policy as relates to funding the construction of public facilities, please let us know, because we do have a fairly large project that we can break ground within 6 months, and that will help our budgets as we move forward. So if you hear that, please let us know so we can apply for those.
And the one thing I would add is that if any of this money we get, I would strongly suggest that we have a separate account for it, that it be maintained, and that they're interested in, 1, how's the money spent, and 2, how many jobs are created by it. And I can almost without fail guarantee you that that's going to be requirements that you're going to have to report if we're going to be taking any of this money, and from that standpoint. But I would strongly suggest that we keep that money separate and apart from anything else, and that we not just throw it into any kind of a general fund or a general checking account.
That's all I have on this particular item. Is there any other comments from the court? If not, if we could simply move to item E. This is the legislative issues. You have in your backup material a memorandum from Mr. Mendez. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any questions you might have on that.
I would mention that tomorrow they're holding the first public hearing on Senate Bill 855, which is the local option transportation. Commissioner Fickus and I are going to be down there for that. And then also tomorrow afternoon, Ways and Means are having hearings on appraisal caps and revenue caps. And so I'm going to probably stick around for that barbecue.
Your Honor.
Good way to put it.
That's all we have at this time.
Okay, there being no other business, then we will adjourn. No, we will recess. Marvin perked right up there. We will now recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. I've got to deal with later. Good luck in August.